no, that's right. So it's a difficult one, and it may, and a lot of time you're using hands more, and your bones may be thinner, you know, in terms of benign tumors, bigger compared to the amount of bone you have here. And really, I think there's sort of a range, you know, before you actually get a fracture. There is a range, you know, and you know, whether it's the activity of the cartilage tumor which is causing the pain in certain periods when you're having growth. So I can't answer that. But what I'm trying to say, if somebody's in pain and it's not a mechanical pain, as in you sat down, like you mentioned, you've got knee pain, that needs looking at. You need to look at, and you'll at least get an MR scan, and occasionally end up getting a biopsy. Sorry.
Hi. I don't want to turn this into a long debate about pain. I don't have osteoporosis. My brother does when he's in the States right now, so I'm here to I remember when he was growing up, we were told that pain was not a normal symptom.
Yeah.
And he was in pain, and he was obviously in pain, and he is still in chronic pain. And I just wonder if somewhere there's a myth being perpetuated that Ollies should not be painful, but I've not really met anyone who said that it's not. So I guess I'm just asking the room, is there anyone who doesn't have pain?
No. It's excruciating pain as well, because it's bone pain. So it's daytime, it's nighttime, it's you know, it's not nice pain, but nobody seems to manage that pain. My brother was going for osteoporosis infusions to try and thicken up some of the bone, which did help him in the short term, but made him feel really unwell for about a week after he'd had the infusion, and that's the only time that he probably has had a level of pain that he could manage. And obviously as you get older, because of the wear and the tear and the damage that's done because of the deformity in the bones, the pain becomes worse and worse and unbearably.
Yeah.
And it, you know, it affects what you can do and when you can work and how much you sleep, and I think it should be something that's managed better in paediatrics to then be taken over to an adult stage where it's more controlled, because you know, it's been managed better as a paediatric patient.
Yeah. I think you've picked on several things there. I mean, because the cause of pain could be multiple here. It could be coming from the cartilage. It could be coming from the deformity, which is, i.e., the joints now. It could be thinning of the bone, which that's why the bisphosphonates to strengthen the bone held. So there's multiple reasons pain could be there. Now, and you're right, I think this is a very sort of old sort of textbook thing which says, oh, this is a painless condition. Because this is nothing, I had a ganglion, and I used to tell patients, oh, ganglion, it doesn't hurt. Till I got it, it actually is not, you know, there is a discomfort. And I think, so the reason I put it there is because there's no other way clinically to tell somebody, say, you know what, I think let's get an MR. So I would much rather MR scan and see you. So my normal follow-up is 6 months, but if you say, you know, hang on, I've got something I'm not happy with, I see you before that. So you have an earlier clinical follow-up, you have an investigation, even though it turns out to be completely negative, rather than I tell you, okay, just deal with your pain, I'll give you some more painkillers, or, you know, what I'm saying is if it is anything, it's something, it's a trigger to say, hang on, you know, I'm not happy with this level of pain, I need to, you know, figure it out. I mean, as long as we know that there's nothing else going on, then yes, then you address how to control pain, and there are different ways for chronic pain.
I mean, I think what you're saying, or what we should be saying, is that unusual pain should be checked, but pain itself in the condition is not unusual. I think it's a base.
I'll take that back.
Base level.
I think that's half the reason that the organisation exists.
Yeah.
Is that we always said that everyone has their own story, their own individual situation that in isolation one doctor has one opinion on, and that develops that doctor's opinion based because there's not that much for them to have
Which would then
experience.
develop another doctor's opinion.
So
if it
the more of you that then speak to your doctors, the more of your doctors that then speak to each other, then that becomes the norm, that they don't have that expectation that this will be a painless and that they have ways in which to manage the various degrees of pain. I think, and so the different conversations that I've had over lunch, including over coffee, the whole reason why this day was set up is that you have to talk to each other about those things and then go back to your own consultants and doctors to have that conversation. It doesn't change it, life.
And this is the whole thing about it. I mean, if like, in a meeting like this, where, you know, potentially the next step could be you can have a database and you know, this is, most of the stuff that I would read or other health professionals read is what's been written maybe even 50 years time. Yeah. And a lot of things just continue. And like I said, the only reason I put it there is, to me, there's no other clinical way to tell you, come and see me. If, you know, and yes, and I think what it should say is if there is pain which you're not comfortable with, you come and see. I think that. Do you want to add something?
I just, from my personal experience, I think like pain is like it's a constant thing. If I walk, I'm in pain, but from from the moment where it like prevents you from doing everyday things without like struggling, then you should get it checked out. Because like I have like a lot of tremors in my fingers, but at some point I remember I was writing a big essay for school, and my ring finger started to really hurt, and I had to stop. So I went to see a doctor, because that's when it just, if it's too much for you to do something simple, go check it out.
Good point, that. Yeah, so we talk about diagnosis, and really I think that these diagnoses happen in an MDT. So normally I'll have, you know, pediatrician, skeletal dysplasia. So we do a clinic where we will sit down in a radiology room with histopathologists, we've got a geneticist, and essentially then decide which ones will. So this is a patient who just recently identified, and she ended up needing some biopsies along with all the other tests. I mean, I don't know whether anybody does bone scans still, but I think we're moving towards total body MR scans. I think in children it's particularly easy. It doesn't involve any radiation, so I think we just stick to MR scans. But yeah, bone scans are another way of doing it. Skeletal surveys, and it has typical finding. A lot of diagnoses made with you know, combining the clinical and radiological features. MR scans, which looks at the lesions, and it's good to have an index scan, and then you can compare and see how the lesions are growing. That's the other one, the bone scan, which tells you a bit bigger sort of distribution. You take a radioisotope, and this radiation then gets captured by a camera. Distribution again, so hands are the commonest, along with femur, tibia, and the rest really. I think one side gets affected more than the other. And if you sort of have sort of three main groups, you have ones where only hand and feet are involved. You have just the long bones and flat bones, and then all the bones. So I think this is sort of a rough sort of guesstimate really. So this is where we are. So coming to the orthopedic problems. The orthopedic problems normally is between deformity, one leg shorter than the other, fracture, and I mentioned, you know, ligament change. So really, what's the deformity? Deformity actually is losing the form. It comes from a sort of Middle English origin, and really it actually encompasses. So technically, it means more than just what it looks like. And there are several things that you would look at, and a lot of work comes from gait analysis and looking at, you know, what the normal could be described as, because everybody's slightly different, but there is a range between which you say that is a normal alignment or normal orientation, and that's how it should look, because that translates to better function, better gait. So there are some numbers that we look at to decide. And essentially there are three things, well, and I'll just go through that. So one is alignment. So alignment is, if you draw a line from, I'm just talking a lower limb at the moment, because I think that's what you walk on and that gets affected the most. So you have alignment, which basically, if you drew a line from the center of the hip joint all the way down to the center of the ankle, that should go through somewhere in the middle of the knee. Now, so this person has had issues with the growth plate. I don't know whether you can see. There is maybe what's known as an A plate attached there. So it's a progressive deformity. So I've just done sort of I've cut the X-ray to say what it would, so we do a pre-op planning like that to make sure where we make cuts to get the leg straight, where the problem is. So that's malalignment. Whereas the other thing that's known as malorientation, this girl had an injury, so it's a fracture, which led to issues with growth. Now her ankle, so her alignment's normal, because if you draw a line from the center of the hip to the center of the ankle, that's going through the center of the knee. But her ankle is not in a correct orientation. Now that, if you leave it, will cause problems. So orientation is the other thing that you look at. So that is still a deformity, but it still needs sorting out. So it's aligned, but maloriented. And the deformity as a big group then gives you issues with function, and the main issues would be, what you do with legs is walk around, run around. You're not as efficient when you do that. And yes, it can cause issues with cosmetic and all other problems. It leads to pain, as you mentioned, and it could lead to degenerative changes in the joints later on in life. So you want a good alignment, and there are several ways of addressing it. The easiest one is what's known as guided growth. You put a temporary A-plate device, or you slow the growth on one side of the growth plate so that the other side just grows. And the amount of correction directly depends upon how much of growth is left, how quickly you're growing, and whether the side where you want the deformity to correct, that growth plate's healthy. So if there's a problem with that growth plate, it's not going to work. So that's just an example of changing the alignment, trying to get it straight. It's the smallest of the operations, which involves putting these metal plates and screws in. It takes, depending on how big the deformity is, the correction can be anything between 10 to 15 degrees, depending on how many bones you've done. But generally, it's around 10 degrees a year. So if you do it reasonably early, the plates go in and they come out. If everything goes as planned. Recovery time is generally, again, I used to say, in a month you'll be fine. Actually, it's 3 months. So I've revised that because it takes around 3 months to just get back to your normal activities, running around, doing your stuff. But in a month, you're a lot better. So overall recovery is not too bad. The other ways of correcting a deformity are a bit more invasive, and they are generally either for bigger corrections, or if it is where the growth plates have fused or nearly fused, in which case you need to make a cut in the bone, which is known as an osteotomy, and then straighten the bone out. And you could do the correction acutely in one go, and also fix it at the same time. So it's an acute, and that can be done by putting metalwork either inside the bone or outside the bone, like so in this case. And the other way is known as a gradual correction, where you make a cut in the bone, you put it in a device which sort of is an external fixator, which holds the two ends of cut bone in the position that they were, and then you gradually correct the deformity over the period of several weeks until you get a full correction. And once you get the correction, you wait till everything heals. So it is a process which is quite intensive. It takes months. We're talking about months. And it could be anything between 9 months, and in adults it could be even longer. So it can go up to 12 to 18 months at a time. The two different main types of external fixators are ones which are on just one side, which is known as monolateral, and circular, which just go around the bone. Now, mechanically, a circular fixator is stronger because it holds things from all around. Monolateral is very convenient to have, especially when you're having it on your thigh, if you get sick, and things like that. So it's you're a lot. It's easier to sort of look after. Either of the two are a big deal. Whoever's had it, they know it. It is not an easy device to have, but it does do a great deal. So it gets you to achieve things which may not be possible otherwise. Can I just ask, how many here in the room have had experience with external fixator? Okay, it's a reasonable number. Okay. Maybe I won't ask anything else. So leg length inequality again. So again, this is again a problem of growth. So one leg which is generally worse affected grows slower, and it leads to leg length problems. Now, if the leg length problem at the time of maturity is 2 centimeters or under, it's generally something which can be dealt with orthotics. Because I think even though you want your legs perfectly equal, undergoing any of the surgical procedures carry, there are more risks than benefits doing surgery for anything less than 2 centimeters. But anything more than that, in a child, you can address it by slowing the growth. If it is an adult, you could potentially think about shortening the longer leg. That's an option. If the shoe raise or insoles is a problem. And really, I think main issue is ineffective gait, and over a period of time, your back starts hurting. You get additional problems. You get problems with the longer leg. Your longer leg is doing more of your work, and that's sort of a guidelines about in terms of how you would treat or deal with leg length difference. And essentially, when you're talking about 30 centimeters and more, that's very challenging, because what you're trying to do is multiple lengthenings. And personally, I think if anything which involves more than 3 lengthenings, there is a problem, because I think it takes away a lot from your life. And in terms of combination of treatments, in terms of slowing the growth, shortening on one side, and lengthening on the other side, to achieve up to 20 centimeters.
I do not fully agree with what you said about number of lengthening. I'm sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
but I can't remember how much she had, but it was obvious for us, not to leave her with such a discrepancy. I mean, for me, getting to a length process, it's a source of pain, a source of problem with school, problem with friends, and she already had like 2 or 3, but she still didn't have the same length between 2 legs. So it was obvious that at the end, before her getting adult, she had to have both legs at the same distance. There was no reason to leave her with 5 or 6 centimeters. So I think she had another one with 2 materials, just to make sure that at the end she could have. So it was not a matter of 3 was the maximum of the procedure she could have, but the aim was.
How many times did you have lengthening? No, I'm just showing one segment, so 4 times. And did you get 20 centimeters?
More.
Did you slow the growth on the other side?
No.
Okay. So I mean, those are the so
Yeah.
these are just the guidelines, and there are people who will push the boundary, and and those are things that you take in consideration in terms of how you how much you go, how much schooling, how you cope with the lengthening. One lengthening will give you an idea how you'll do with the next lengthening. As you mature, things are different as well. So a 5-year-old will react very differently to a 7-year-old. A 7-year-old will react very differently to a 14-year-old. So all those things are taken into account. The lengthening procedure is not a procedure that you end up taking very lightly. Normally, my patients take at least 6 months or 1 year of preparation before you actually even go close to any lengthening procedure. So it is something which you take very seriously. And yes, every centimeter that you gain, it's a hard work put in. It's not something that it's an easy, simple centimeter that you. So it's hard work from your end, and how you live with the frame, and all those things are important. And yes, there are people who do 30, took more than that, so in Acorn plastics, and there's a big debate about that. So the children with short stature, and people lengthen them more than 30 centimeters. And that's a different discussion. Do you need to? But what I'm saying is, if there is an easier option, sometimes those are discussions to be had.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I take your point. So if it works for you, why not? Go for it. So slowing the growth is an easier option, and I always offer it because recovery is better, and particularly there are ways to figure out what your ultimate height is going to be. So if you're going to be above average in your height, then it makes sense to offer slowing the growth. If your height is going to be below average, then obviously lengthening is a better option. But those are the things that you sort of counsel and be prepared in terms of before you. The last thing you want to do is have a big fixator on your leg and they say, hang on, I didn't sign up for this much approach. So there's a huge amount of work which needs to go in. And this is just an example of what you do with a drill, which is a permanent form of slowing the growth, or putting the plates in, which is a temporary one where plates need to come out once the correction has been completed. Yeah, so the new kid in the block is the iron rod lengthening, which essentially we'll talk about it later. So I'll just go through the lengthening procedure. So I think this is how they used to lengthen in 1920. So you cut the bone, put them in traction, and hope that they'll just straighten out. And then Wagner method, which was in Germany, late 70s. And again, this was a way of acute lengthening and then bone grafting, whatever gap was there. There was obvious failures, huge complication rates. And whilst Europe was doing this, this guy in Siberia was sitting and working out, and he had perfected this way of lengthening and by using external fixation. It took nearly 30 years before West first heard about this. And I think when he came to Italy in Milan, that's the first they said, thought it's Russian propaganda, he's made things up. But when the Italians started doing it, and then went to States and the Western world, and they started, essentially there's a method known as Ilizarov method. You don't need to have an external fixator, but that essentially is make a cut of the bone, stabilize the bone, and gradually lengthen it after a latent period. So you can get 1 millimeter a day, and you can keep lengthening. Bone will lengthen kilometers if you want. The only thing which restricts is your soft tissues. You can't, the soft tissues get tight, you start getting dislocations on the knee, stiffness around the ankle, hips start dislocating because soft tissues are tight. So you go gradually, and there's a limit to how much you can lengthen per segment. I think those are the things to keep. The more you lengthen, bigger the problems. So generally in terms of lengthening, the safest is you don't want to go more than 30% of the length of the bone. So really we're looking at around 5 centimeters. More than that, you're pushing your limit. There are people who do it, I'm not deciding. So this is the Ilizarov fixator.